Anytime. Oh.
All right.
Hey, what's up? Welcome back to Why We Roll, the tabletop game design podcast from the Stillfleet studio, focused on indie TTRPGs, our favorite thing in the world. As ever, I'm Wythe Marschall, and I'm joined by amazing co-host and audio engineer.
Oh, hey, what's up? I'm Chris Pickett. How's it going?
Hey, what's up, Chris? Very excited tonight. We have, if you are listening live, you know it's a different time and day, in fact. So we're space and time are a little wibbly wobbly. That's because we have a great guest, and we are really excited. So we made an extra slot here to talk to the fabulous Munkao about Kala Mandala, which is a new game that I've had the pleasure of reading. I'm really excited to dig into and play. And I'm just curious to learn more, and I've been lucky enough to chat a little through, the ye old Discord with Munkao, but I think it'll be fun to chat live and just get to know a little more about you and your work in advance of Kalamandala kind of coming into the world in a bigger way, hopefully soon. So, that's probably one of the questions we'll get to is like, how can people, support it and buy it and play it? But to kick us off, Munkao, could you introduce yourself and just tell us a little about who you are and your work in games? Just how, if people don't know you for some reason, what have you been up to?
Okay, thanks so much for having me. So my name is Munkao. I am a game designer and an artist. I'm from Malaysia. So my main project that I've been working on for the past decade or so is Southeast Asian fantasy. So it's both an art project as well as a tabletop RPG. It's called Kala Mandala. Yeah. So yeah, that's me.
Nice. And if you have not seen Kalamandala, you might want to Google it, take a look at the art. Your art is really fantastic in general, and
Yeah,
I
it's
think this project,
beautiful.
it just
Thank you
really
so much.
captures a lot of fun, cool aspects. And I think, Chris, maybe you have more to say about this as well, but specifically black and white old school fantasy, but through this
Yeah.
lens of we know that we're not in a Tolkien-esque, European style fantasy world right away. But I do think it's very inviting, and I think there's a lot to gain from just really even flipping through these books in terms of inspiration and ideas. The maps are immaculate as well. There's a lot of cool composition as well as just like the hero portraiture. So maybe that's something we can get into. And Chris, I don't know if you had thoughts. Chris also works a lot in black and white, sort of OSR inspired art.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I mean, that was definitely one of the things that first drew me to your work in general, Munkao, is this kind of I think Wythe is right. There's this kind of, it feels like a reference to this kind of like 80s game book, or like John Blanche, R.I.P. John Blanche, by the way, homeboy just passed away to a big dog, big dog up in heaven. But yeah, it feels like, there's these like very specific references, but there's a softness to it. And there's this like kind of, just like very different approach and very different kind of visual regime than what you're used to. So you get the sense that, oh, this is a TTRPG right away. But then I don't know, like I was like immediately just like, I want to know more about this world. This is so cool and like kind of, I don't know, cozy fantasy in a way, but without being toothless in the way that the cozy fantasy can be.
But there's demons and giants.
I know,
and
it's
all
dope.
This stuff. One thing we can talk more and more about some of the specifics. I do want to get into some of the specific research and folklore, and especially some of the just the great OSR like adventure plots. But broadly speaking, Monka, how did you get into illustration? And maybe it's separately. I don't know if this is the same question or not. But how did you get into game design? So I don't know if you can say a little about your work as an illustrator and how you came to like be so good at it, basically.
Those are very nice things to for you guys to say. Thank you so much.
We're just speaking the truth.
Oh God, sorry. I'm very uncomfortable with compliments. Well, I've always drawn my kind of like my whole life, but my art career kind of thing has always been kind of messy and awkward. I've done a lot of stuff. I've done a lot of shit. I was a visualizer. I was a story. Back then, agencies need visualizers, right? You need mood boards and all that. So I was also a storyboard artist. I was a mural painter. I made T-shirts. I made zines. Lots of stuff. I was a lowbrow artist for a bit. And then I also was working in the contemporary art scene for a little bit. I was painting, but I started with being also a comic book background artist because my brother was a comic book artist. So he's the one who taught me how to draw. But none of the things that I did was kind of like creatively or financially or kind of like mentally sustainable. Just never felt like I fit in or like I can do this for long. And then I got into making games. That was originally an art project. So making games is also really, really hard, but so far it's the most sustainable and the longest thing that I've done. So how I got into making games was actually an art project. So I made this, I was trying to find out about Malaysian politics. I was trying to learn about it. And I think making games is kind of like learning systems and breaking stuff down. You know, it makes it more palatable and easier to digest and understand. So back then I didn't really know that much about Malaysian politics. This was about 15 years ago, and more than 15 years ago. And I really wanted to learn more. So I made an art project, and it was a card game. It was called Politico. It's a card game of Malaysian politics. And it became kind of like relatively successful. So I thought, hey, I'm going to carry on making games. And back then I didn't know about TTRPGs. So it was board games. It was based on Monopoly Deal. When I first played it, it was incredibly fun, you know. So that is kind of how I got into game design, and how I kind of like slowly get introduced to RPGs, and then like push myself completely into Southeast Asian fantasy.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, you know, we're big fans of having political dimensions in games, and I love the way that you frame that as like, well, yeah, you can have this like very kind of like outline like framework for understanding a system, which it does. It makes it easier to kind of grok or to. Well, I can't use that word anymore, but you know what I mean.
I learned a lot about. I remember learning a lot about history from civilization as well as Total War. It's a legit place to learn stuff, right?
And StarCraft, the Zerg are real, as I'm always saying. No, but I think it's a great point too about like making games to learn. Like you don't have to be an expert to make a game about something. You can use your learning process to make the game, and then just be transparent about it, or maybe a little reflective, or use discernment. So maybe you don't try to say this is the definitive thing ever in the genre if you've literally just learned about it. But like I think I do that all the time. Like, oh, I'm interested in this topic, so I'll try to bring that into the game more. So I think that, again, that's really cool that from the beginning you were taking your art practice and marrying it to your interests through games, and it just like worked out. So well, then how did you come to specifically tabletop role-playing games? And I don't know if this, you know, is part of the OSR or what you think about that term or whatever, but, you know, how did you get involved in kind of, not board games, but like these storytelling games that are so rich? And obviously, again, they're driven by cool art, but they're going a lot further than that with kind of characters and world building, right?
Yeah, I was... Probably unlike you guys, I was not exposed to tabletop RPGs when I was young. So most of my friends then were like really into football, soccer, music, you know, so it's kind of like
not nerd shit, like cool stuff that gets you girlfriends and stuff like that.
It's such a different world these days. Like, it's so cool. Like,
I know it's totally it's crazy. It's crazy making sometimes to be like, I used to get beat up for this, man.
and to just have I remember to just have like a girl walk into a comic book shop. It's like, holy shit! It's weird. It's like, who is this person, right? Yeah, it's such a different world. Anyway, so I didn't really have that many nerd friends, and so the things that I was exposed to are kind of like more lone wolf game books or Magic the Gathering, comics, stuff like that. Never a tabletop RPG. So I was only exposed to it in my 30s through 5e. And despite it being 5e, I don't have anything against 5e, you know, but I don't really play it. I don't really care for it now, but I don't have anything against it. I have like really strong memories of it. So the first time I played a tabletop RPG, it was mind melting, mind blowing, and what the hell is this? My previous idea of a game is that you play to win, because you're playing computer games, you're playing Magic the Gathering is winning, right? And board games often are also winning. And winning is fun, right? What the hell is this thing that, like, no, you can't just agree to have fun. Come on, let's just have fun. You're just skipping the winning part. Just play, you can just play. You can just play and you can just read, you can just create, you can just, I don't know, everything's in your head, but it's insane. I don't play as much these days, just because I'm really like got a lot of stuff going on, but like that is like a core memory that I have with tabletop RPGs, like how it just completely rejigs your whole idea of what play is or what a game is, and you can just make stuff. Yeah, I mean, maybe this is like kind of like more basic stuff lah, but like that was just kind of like my experience of tabletop RPGs. Like, oh, what the hell,
No, yeah,
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
I mean, I think that we've all kind of experienced that to a degree, no matter what age you're introduced to it.
Exactly. I was going to say, I think all of us probably have some memory of. I remember that idea of character creation and getting really into that as a kid, where I didn't even know it was not cool. So at first I was just like, but that was the game. The game was making cool characters and trying to understand the rules as a little kid. And
I wonder if that's why I always start with character creation when I'm writing. That actually, like, I've never thought about that before, but that might be a thing.
Yeah,
because I had a similar experience.
Yeah, the most recent one, because in the past couple of years, like solo games are really popular, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was the past couple of years, then I kind of realized that actually, like, solo character creation is a game.
Yeah.
It's a solo game. You're already playing. Just making is playing.
Yeah.
So that kind of like, I don't know, a second wave in my head, like, whoa, what the hell? That was not as impactful. I mean, the first one is like, wow, bowl over. But then like the slow realization that just reading is playing is really, kind of like interesting.
Yeah.
Even the act of engaging with the text can be a form of play. Because you're already engaging your imagination. How would I use these systems? How would I build my character? How would I tell my stories or the stories that I'm interested in through this? You're already kind of starting to do that right from the get-go. Yeah, that's.
And it's a key question of where does play take place. So like with solo games, it's taking place between you and the text, which is fun. It can be fulfilling. And that goes back to like that. Oh, I have the book, but no one to play with, so I guess I'll play it solo, even though that's not the intention. But when you play with people, I think it really, moves that dynamic around. And there's, we could talk about GM-less games, GM games. Mandala, to highlight your new project, is in this tradition, like the games we make, adventure games with a GM. But it really feels like it's touching on some of the more modern, innovative, contemporary ideas about world building and collective, collaborative design. And giving people touchstones and then inviting them to kind of experience, to tell us like how their group of sort of heroes is taking on jobs and sort of what happens next. It's written in a very light, fun tone with a lot of sort of good scaffolding, but not like the idea of needing to learn lore. And instead it's like the lore is baked into the process, which I think is another part of games I really like. RPGs obviously is world building. Like world building can be a kind of game too, where you just get into the world and you're like, man, what if I lived in such and such a place? Like you said, it's kind of this insanity in your head. I'm wondering if you could take us a little into world building for Mandala specifically, but just in general, or really where do you start, I guess, with game design, your process?
And maybe
get into the world of it. Yeah.
Maybe I can piggyback this onto this question as well. Just for folks who haven't read through it or haven't seen, you've got the playbook up on itch, you've got some other material floating around, but like what is Mandala? Like what is the world that you're writing out, that you're building? And then into Wythe's question, what does the process of world building look like for you?
I'm stopped. You gotta stop this interview now.
Well, let's start. What is Mandala? What can you what's the elevator pitch? What's the quick pitch for the game?
The quick pitch for the game. So during cons, I would just tell people, fantasy is European, fantasy is Western. What if we shift the center of fantasy to Southeast Asia and just plonk it in the middle of Southeast Asia? And this is me reimagining that fantasy and how it looks like and how it kind of could be, Okay, let me move on to that and talk about how I think I'm stumped because it's a really, really big question for me, and there's levels and levels before I build up to even that kind of thing, So I like that very first premise of fantasy being Western requires me to kind of like shift, and shifting that center is kind of like a bit of a conceptual work for myself. When you shift the center, you don't just shift one thing, you shift the whole spectrum of it. So in Western fantasy, if other cultures are depicted, they are always on the periphery. And what makes those cultures interesting is how it contrasts and how different it is to Western cultures. Yeah, so I think that is kind of like a problem itself, because you have a lot less space to play with. Yeah, so Kala Mandala moves this whole spectrum to Southeast Asia and kind of like hopefully explore within that space itself. So that is kind of like a pitch of what it is. That there is also, sorry, my cat is opening it door. There is also like what kind of like grounds the conceptualness to it is also, I think, moving it from the West to Southeast Asia is really just kind of like the first step. I don't know if you guys have consumed like any Southeast Asian media or like watched movies. Wythe probably has, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I think we both have. But
you guys. Okay, great. Yeah.
Wythe has more of a vested interest in it, maybe, but
I have to all the time. So yes.
Yeah. So if there's any fantasy or any historical media in Southeast Asia, it is always very ethno-nationalist. It is always like, this is us, this is Malaysians, or this is whatever race you are. It is always that. It's quite often that. And that is very boring. That is incredibly boring. I find it very boring. And I think it also neglects a large part of Southeast Asian history, where it is very open, where it is very very dynamic and very connected to each other and connected to the wider world, because Southeast Asia sits in like the middle of global trade. So
it's in the middle of a lot of global trade. It's also, I was also going to say, like, it's just like frankly untrue. It's never monoculture, right? Like, in Thailand, you have Chinese people living in Thailand. Like like you're saying, it's the borders are much more porous than you're kind of led to.
The identities are very fluid. You just mix and match. I can be this today, I can be that.
Yeah. Well, and the imposition of those national borders, the ethno-national or ethno-linguistic borders, is a colonial imposition.
Yes.
On
Right.
Had a different way of organizing themselves. That, funny enough, your game literally names it in the title. So it's a great game. So if you don't know the history or anthropology of Southeast Asia, you could play this fun OSR game with like cool boar people and rabbit people and snake people, but also learn a thing or two without really having to do any research, because it's built into the game. It's actually recursively kind of built into the structure of the game. It's explained in one A5 page, very well written at the beginning, kind of one of these books, so Earthly Beings, this kind of art book about what a mandala is and mandala systems of governance. But I think that's a really fun idea of not just reframing it, but then if you reframed it to Malaysia or to Indonesia or to Thailand, it would be in that ethno-national gaze that is essentially a European gaze. And what you've done is reframe it to a different time where that hasn't occurred yet, and people have these overlapping identities. They speak multiple languages. They pray to different gods, and they practice Buddhist rites as well. And there isn't sort of a clear like you're this or you're that taxonomy, that categorization, which feels very colonial. It's also just really baked into D&D and fantasy games as a genre. It's very much like, pick your thing. Are you fantasy Irish because you're the halfling? Are you fantasy whatever bad guy because you're the orc? Like, you pick
all tabaxis do this.
Yeah, exactly. So
I'm so tired of tabaxis scratching up my furniture, dude.
I really like Kung Fu Panda 1 or 2, I can't remember, where Poe's dad is a freaking chicken, and it's just matter of fact, you know?
Yeah.
And I hated it when they, actually, you're a doctor, you come from a long line of pandas. You know, I'm so
why can't my dad just be a goose, man?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a goose, it's not a chicken. Yeah, so that matter of factness of this happening, you know, is so cool.
Yeah.
You know, so that is kind of like what like, you know, you gotta have race, and then your race is so rigid, you know, it's kind of like not really my thing. Yeah, so that why you guys are both exactly right, you know, that's what I'm trying to do with like my own feelings with staying in Southeast Asia, and like how I get tired by some of these perspectives that I've been held here, and that's kind of like I'm Kala Mandala is really a reaction to it. You know, and I want to imagine something that is more interesting and more human, more. I don't know if the word is kind, but I'm sure people are cruel in the back in the. I'm sure people are cruel in general, but just
people are people, but
yeah, people are no, exactly, you know, so people are people. I want to portray people as people.
Yeah,
you know, you can have multitudes, you can inside. Yeah, so that's what.
Exactly. I mean, it's often that we're all both at the same time, right? As like as much soft and caring as we can be cruel, and you know.
Well, and it's baked in also. So in this game, your player characters in the fantasy adventure game, but in this game you work for the Meddlers Guild. You're meddlers, and I think that's so
it's so funny. It's
so
good.
I'm so glad
for the kinds of picaresque adventures, like in D&D, you often the idea. This is kind of the traditional gloss of like the difference. One big difference between the OSR and 5e, right? In the OSR, in the NSR, we were more honest about like, well, you're not really a hero. You're like an anti-hero, right? You're a PICARO. Whereas in 5e, it's like, no, you're a hero. You're going to save the galaxy, whatever. And I think it's funny to be like, no, what you really are is a meddler. Like you're just kind of like poking, and so
call it what it is.
A positive thing. You're doing helpful deeds. These adventures as written, you're helping people, but it's sort of like you show up and you're like the guy who's standing around with a sword, and the other people.
You're the plumber. You're the plumber with a sword.
Exactly.
You're a plumber with a sword.
This reminds me of Psycho Dungeon, right, Chris? And like games where it's like you're doing something useful. It's not that you're a bad person. It's just you're not the hero saving the galaxy. You're a plumber.
Right.
You're a fantasy plumber.
It's maintenance.
And I think that is one element of maintaining a society and being an interesting person who's not a hero necessarily, but in an interesting world. That along with that mandala thing, it's very inviting, I think, for new players, because you don't have to know. You're not choosing a sort of category where you have to learn a lot of lore about Southeast Asian history. You're just part of this complex web of being. You pick, what kind of folk am I? Human folk, pig folk, snake folk, whatever. And then, you start meddling, and you will learn along the way if you do these adventures, you'll learn something, right? There's literally little asides. There's like a little spread in each, where it's like, here's some stuff about food. And I love that, because honestly, in all our games, people are always like, why do you have so much about food? I'm like, because I like writing about food. So I write about sci-fi. I like sci-fi and food. So it's always like, here's this weird future food thing. I love that these books have this sense of like, it's a full-ass nice OSR adventure. Let me also stop and tell you for a couple pages about how people lit fires back in the day, right? Like how can you put bamboo together to make a nice like thing that starts a fire quickly? And like I think that is a form of inviting people in and saying, this is not lore, this is you having fun as a picaresque adventure, because at some point you get tired and you're hungry and you want to start a fire, and how do you do that? So anyway, I think the books kind of really bring you in without requiring a lot up front of you, which in 2026 it feels like that is a winning strategy, I will say, as a game from a game design perspective. That was not really a question, but I do think going back to Kala Mandala, and the inspiration and some of, I know you said you sort of did some research for it. I don't know if you can say more about maybe where you got started for this project in particular, what you sort of started with, or its evolution, maybe. Where did it start? Where is it going?
It started with after playing 5e, my mind was already blown. I kind of stopped drawing elves. I kind of stopped drawing dwarves. And then at some point, it was like, why do I keep drawing L's, you know, and why do I keep drawing? And also my L's aren't more interesting than any of the L's out there already. So it kind of feels boring to draw, to participate in. So I thought like, what is Southeast Asian fantasy? And then I realized that I know very little about Southeast Asia. So I had to start to read on Southeast Asia and try to know Southeast Asia, so to conceptualize what is Southeast Asia. You know, who are we? What are the things that what are the ideas that keep popping up? And so that's a lot of reading, and then another very important part is that like I can totally imagine a tavern. I can totally imagine cobblestone roads. I've never been to Europe, but I can imagine all that stuff. But I can't do the same for Southeast Asia. You know, back then I can't do it. Yeah, so I just do not have that visual vocabulary for it, because there's not enough media for it, because there really isn't that much visual research or things like that. So I had to read up on the history. I had to find as much visual references as I could. I think I share them on my Patreon, but I think maybe it's kind of like a lot of files are obsolete now. So just trying to see what Southeast Asia looks like and could feel like. How do people dress? I had to get used to drawing people not wearing shoes, so you have to draw feet. That took a few years.
That takes so much practice.
It's so hard.
Thank God for shoes.
Boots, fantasy boots are easy to draw.
Yeah,
hell yeah, they are.
Space boots are just galoshes. It's just like straight down, you know. Yeah,
it's just a cylinder with another cylinder on it. Really,
it's that golden age comic style of drawing that makes it very easy.
Yeah. It's basically just the shape of the foot, and then you've got the little top down lip to let you
marshmallow it up. So I had to do. So anyway, sorry, I guess coming back to it, I had to do all that kind of research, and also to part of the reason for many years. This in the past couple of years, I've been trying colors, but for many years I didn't. I did black and white, and a large part of the reason was not actually to try and go look like old OSR adventures, but it was actually efficiency. Like I just needed to pump up as much art as I could, just so that I can get used to visualizing that space, so that, and also for other people to get familiar with the space. Yeah, so I did a lot of that, and then I have I go to talks. I thankfully have kind of like researcher friends. I have a frequent collaborator. She is Ellie Gimbat. She is a writer. She is an anthropologist. She's a rice researcher. She's a writer. So she's really cool. And I talk to her a lot about these kind of like overlapping things of history, of culture, of nerd shit, and stuff like that. She also helps me with my English. So she's like friends who know their shit are very helpful. So basically a lot of reading, a lot of research, a lot of like just letting things simmer and then slowly regurgitate it out, or let things ferment. Fermentation is a big thing in Southeast Asia. So
sorry, that was just a really good. That was solid.
Good button.
It felt like I'm selling something. Product placement. And you can get my my fermented fish on each
fish sauce.
So
that's awesome. I mean, really, fermentation is big across cultures, but in the West, I think we have suppressed fermentation in America in favor of sterilization.
Well, and I definitely want to call out. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. This came up with I will say aspects of the West, quote unquote, because what is the West, right? It's like per Edward Said or whatever, it's this fiction, right? What does it really mean?
Yeah.
Does it mean Paris? Does it, what is the place, London? But like with Chris's game, which is set in Constantinople, but broadly it's all around the world. But for a book kind of with the European gaze, it's hard to find sources around the actual medieval, medieval. There are certain things that are overrepresented. So if you want to go to England, you want to see knights. Yeah, there's plenty of books about how knights lived. But there's not a lot of books about how like a normal peasant in the middle of Anatolia, just what their house would have looked like. They exist, certainly.
Or how they would have dressed.
How they would have dressed.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of just like not recorded or stuff that hasn't been replicated because of specific colonial conditions.
And I think like the further you go from this sort of culture empire that tells us, well, everyone should go to Paris or Rome or something, like the harder maybe it is. And you do see presentations of it. Like so my wife and I watch, mostly I just sort of in passing see random scenes from lots and lots of Thai shows, that a lot of which are period dramas, and they really seem to faithfully show some aspect of Thai culture. But it's interesting because, to your point, it does feel often like a specific, it's not doing what you're doing and exploring and playing with folklore necessarily. It's sort of telling modern stories to the modern TV viewer who wants kind of certain sort of procedural stories, and often in an ethno-national framework. So I think it's interesting that you did this research to just kind of represent those little pieces. What, like I said, how did people start fires? Really actually fascinating. Not a long thing, like less than one page, but I was like, this is mind blowing that like this works. I want to go build this little bamboo fire starter, So I think that research shows that that there's lots of little pieces, kind of little gems scattered throughout. So maybe, and there's lots of art to that point also, 100% in the chat. We're very lucky to see all the art because it is very good. It's coherent together and there's a lot of it. So it's very much art driven in that sense. Maybe can you walk us through some of your thoughts on putting together a game? Because currently, as I understand, the game has a playbook, which is very easy to digest, and then there's lots of these kind of adventure books and art books as well. And I think they're a little bit different as kind of objects. You could imagine a version where it's all collected in one like big hardback A5 book or something. How did you go about deciding like what was the game versus like and I don't know if that's going to change in the future, but can you tell us a little about just sort of making it into a thing to share with the world, if that makes sense?
I think so maybe I need to explain a little bit about what Wythe mentioned just now about kind of like the Walter's Mandala and kind of like, and how I find kind of like a resonance with it, right, in how I make creatively. So should I explain the mandala? Like the Walter's Mandala? Okay.
Yeah, hell yeah. So, let's do it. Let's get it.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Because it's like kind of like academic stuff, and maybe I got it wrong. So, contrasting to like a conventional nation state, which you have permanent borders, you have a permanent population. Walter's Mandala uses the framework and then using his lens to see historical Southeast Asian polities, which is focus. The focus would be the center of power, which is the strongest ruler at that point. So the other chiefs and the weaker rulers will look in and for protection, for influence, right? So that is kind of like the mandala. The mandala starts from the center and kind of like that power influence spreads out. Sometimes these mandalas overlap, and the weaker rulers could potentially also pay tribute to both mandalas. And the mandala is also a very organic space because each weak ruler has a chance to destabilize this mandala and become the center of power themselves. So it's a very organic, very unstable, very dynamic way of looking at things, as opposed to like strict borders. Conventional states are kind of like borders defined by borders, right? Yeah, so that is kind of like a mandala thing. And how I find resonance in it is because that focus of the center, as well as kind of like how that influence bleeding out and that organicness to it helps me a lot when I make Southeast Asian fantasy. So compared to, say, maybe a kind of like a border defined or a taxonomical way of creating a world where there are going to be like 6 races, or there's going to be like 9 gods, and there's going to be like 2 continents. So I don't really engage in that way of thinking, and so I just focus on this idea that I kind of want of explore, and I kind of like push out and kind of build upon it, and it's more organic, and when maybe I don't have ideas, then kind of stop, and that's kind of like how my creation process. But that's really bad, because when people ask me what is the final thing, I don't have an answer. Part of like what you see now, the zines are also of a practical reason, because I'm going to go to a con like maybe in 2 weeks time, and I gotta have some new shit out. I gotta sell some stuff, so I'm gonna make an art book, art zine, or like I gotta have I have a bunch of like the rules came out from writing adventures, and like I kind of like I have all these silly ideas, and I'm gonna compile them and make them into zines. Yeah, so I don't have like a very, very concrete idea of how the book is gonna be, or if there's going to be like a solid book or not. So I don't really have a concrete idea, but I kind of like want to build upon like what the rulebook is already. I kind of like want to have something that is more of like I don't know what you call this, but more like the world land book, so that people can have a home base. People can have like travel a little bit around this area and have a longer play. What do you call it? What do you call this, a book like?
Like a campaign or setting?
Yeah, gazetteer is the word that kept coming to mind for me. But that's like so D&D coded, so I don't know if there's a better word out there.
That one, because it's kind of in a weird. It hasn't been used a lot recently. So
it does have a weird kind of.
It's like a travel log, right? The idea that you travel different places.
Travelogue
and enjoy them.
Travelogue is fun.
I think it shines through that each of these zines could be its own little center, and when you're in it feels very central and interesting. And then when you go somewhere else, you're like, oh, I see. I'm a meddler. It's
completely different.
Right? I'm kind of wandering, and I think again that works, and you could imagine some of them being longer, but it doesn't. In a way, what's nice is the shorter ones are still slap, right? It's not. You'd want to collect them all because they're all just kind of different, and yet they're all part of the same world very clearly. I do think, and this is coming from the chat as well, it reminds me of the difference between sort of folklore and the structures. There is a chat. People are saying nice things in the chat.
So we're looking at a studio chat, and there's the 3 people there.
Oh yeah, so there's a private chat, there's the Twitch chat, and the people in the Twitch chat are just saying things like, "Let's go, Munkao's next venture, fermentation food business, etc." So
I'm so bad. I didn't realize it, because that would have made me so much more nervous.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, you don't have to look at it. We'll monitor it for you.
But yeah, no, I think I could see how this world is coming together, kind of like. So I was thinking of to use again like weird a reference here, but like Deleuze talks about rhizomatic versus arboreal structures. Like the rhizome is the mushroom, and the mushroom can grow kind of wherever it wants, and the arboreal, like a plant, kind of has to grow up and out in a certain way. And I think that modern well-told tales, you're kind of expected, in modern game books, rule books, you're expected to kind of have certain chapters. Like you said, there's X many classes, X many species, item tables, and you kind of want to follow that structure if you're competing in that arboreal world. But I love these books because they feel rhizomatic, to use that biological metaphor. They kind of are like spreading out, do anything over here, and it all kind of works together. It's all one world. And it feels like that is how folklore originated, is people didn't have the internet, and they didn't have massive rule books or whatever. They didn't have this Enlightenment idea of category.
Didn't have lore tomes.
So like stories, again, even in the West, of King Arthur or something, they were just kind of like weird, constantly changing stories that people later wrote down versions of, and there's a lot of versions of them.
And then you codify it, right?
And later, like Journey to the West and its relationship to all the stories before. You know what I mean? Like it's a version of a version of a version.
I think you mean Dragon Ball.
I think I mean Dragon Ball. So I feel like that could work for this game too, where like there's different versions of the game that just keep popping up, and it's whatever Munkao wants.
I was going to say exactly that. I think that it's totally fair to be like, well, there is no final version. It is what it is in the moment. It's this collection of texts, and it's going to be this kind of exploration, and I think that's fine. Like, Wythe and I have talked extensively about how we like the Vault of Varn style release, where it's like, no, we're going to put out a zine, and then maybe 3-6 months later put out another zine that expands but is a little bit different. I like that style of release, and to your point, like it just like it brings you directly into the diegesis of the concept of the mandala, and it just it's this kind of never ending landscape with no spaces in between.
Yeah, I love that, but also
you got to sell something.
You got to sell something, and you gotta.
Yeah.
I also like books, you know. I also want a book eventually, so it's a balance of trying to.
Right, of course. To the book structures, you know, again, the playbook is a self-contained book, so I don't want people to feel like it's confusing. It's not confusing at all. You could just get the playbook and play. The little adventures, which are all very different, are so good. They're really interestingly structured, and they're very different topics. So, sort of a little bit related to sort of how do you write and design games. How do you approach adventures? Like, how do you approach that separately from the rules or the world, if that makes sense?
Wife gave me this question before, but I totally struggle to give a satisfying answer. But I feel like I'm not like I mentioned before. I'm not really. I'm not cerebral when I work. You know, I don't really think about it, but also I don't think I've written enough adventures to kind of like see a pattern that I have coming out, and but I know that I like fun things. I like funny things. I like things that, because I'm not a very good GM, so I love reading stuff that feels easy to run. You know, so I those are the things that I like, and I try to make those things if possible. Yeah. So, so that is my answer.
Yeah. Do you? I mean, I could do my best to summarize a couple threads I see just on these 3 adventures alone. So, you know, number 1, Stirring the Hornet's Nest at Het Thamsia. Number 2, Deluge at Drizzle Distillery, and number 3, Tragedy at Zayas Theater. So, these are all really great. They're all really different thematically, but you can see the role of the player here. They all have, I think, fun. To your point, they have very fun kind of like mini-gamey elements that are distinct. So without giving away too much, without spoilers, it says from the beginning that Het Thamsia is a temple complex devoted to automation, and there are non-sentient automata, and there are ways to recite mantra to kind of code them, and they can only hold 3 codes. You know, it's like very, very limited, very simple, and that is really interesting because it creates a mini game where the players can hack these kind of like stone and bamboo and bronze like automata, and that could change the adventure. I actually don't really know, you know, I don't know in playtest how it went down, but I love that that's foregrounded. It's like one of the first pages is like, here's a mini game that's going to just run throughout. And similarly but different in the theater one, in Zayas Theater, you have the sort of hand dance, which can be used to fool the kind of apparitions, the demons, the sort of evil, or not even necessarily evil, just the chaotic parts of the script that have come to life. They are part of a play, and if you do the right moves as a player, you can tell the GM, look, I'm doing the command thing, the guard has to do what I want. And it's like, as a GM, it's like 2 bullets or whatever, but reading that is mind-blowing, because you're like, oh, of course, give the player like a meta thing to do. And I think in both, those are just to name 2 examples that are at the beginning of these wonderful little adventures, which people should check out. But I think that, you know, I think as an adventure writer, it's clever to come up with relatively simple, like, new mechanics, but they're not really even, you know, how much of a mechanic is it to say they have to make this exact hand gesture and remember this to tell the GM, right? But it's fun. It honestly gives everyone something to do at the table that's a little new, doesn't require research, isn't math heavy, and it gets you into the world, and it actually has an effect on the game without, again, like, I don't actually know how much it mattered in playtests, but it feels like, ooh, that's something players are going to want to, like, decode, right? So I thought that was just a clever
or even read. I think it's kind of like, even if I think, like, even because in my playtest nobody did the gestures, but it was just kind of fun to have that, you know, that possibility. And I think I have to give a lot of credit to the developmental editors as well. You know, Derek Sun and Brad Kerr, they're awesome game designers, and I love their adventures. And like with Zayas Theater, the idea was like, what if because a lot of stuff is sentient in Southeast Asia, right? I mean, it's in the introduction of the zine itself. So it was just like my idea of like, what if something abstract that is non-tangible, can it also be sentient? You know, so these are kind of like theater roles becoming sentient. And it was a mess in my head. The first draft is like, I don't know, it's unplayable. You know, I can't even play test it, and really the editors always push me towards something that's usable and something that's a GM can use to interact with players. Yeah, so I think they play a large role in the design of the adventures as well. So I think how these mini games, the ideas from these mini games are often kind of silly, but at the first draft, they are all often maybe too silly or too stupid, and it has to be tamed down into something that's more usable. And that taming process is often the help of editors and friends, you know,
for sure.
Yeah,
and sometimes your editors are your friends.
That's true.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, that's a really good point, though. That it is a communal process to do the game design part.
Right.
It's like there's you know, in traditional adventure game, there's at least two people. With making it, really often there's at least a couple people to bounce ideas and see what makes sense, what sticks.
And I think there's a couple of jokes. Like the really funny thing that Aaron Lim, who's also a game designer, that he suggested, and that's so fucking funny that I put it inside.
They are really funny. The NPCs often they only have like one or two bulleted statements, but they're very funny. There's real good moments when you. Great. I don't want to blow all the jokes, but when you encounter these NPCs, you know, again, I think there's a lot of humor baked in that the setting kind of, you know, pushes people toward. Yeah. Even though, the things that they're doing, I mean, there's demon puppets and there's, you know, there's an angry god. I mean, there's all kinds of like actual traditional adventure, you know, challenges. So again, I don't mean to make it sound like, oh, this is this whimsical setting where nothing happens. Quite the opposite.
Yeah, it's quite the opposite. But I was going to say too. I mean, to your point earlier, Munkao, about you know, writing adventures so that they feel easy to GM, you know, regardless of how you feel about your GMing. I suspect you're a better GM than you give yourself credit for. That's just a sneaking suspicion that I have. But, you know, I think that's something that kind of runs across all of your writing, honestly, that really helps with that too, is that there's a really punchy brevity to everything that you write. Like everything has weight, but it's very brief. It's very short, so it's easy to run through. And I think to Wythe's point earlier, just like get a lot of information without it feeling like you're having to like dig through or do research or do work to engage with the content. And you see that throughout your adventure writing, throughout the playbook as well. Like it's all very punchy, it's all very, you know, and the NPCs just have a couple of brief little kind of descriptors, but that's all that you need to really run with it, which you know, I think is nice and something I aspire to, frankly.
That's really great to hear. It's really hard, so I get help from Ellie and all that. So, like my new adventure. I don't know when this is going out, but I'm having a new adventure. Sorry, this is like probably not related, but it's kind of related to it because my next adventure is about it's called What Happened to the Silver Spoon Boys, and it's about an adventuring party of really handsome and really privileged and really rich adventurers who has gone into this haunted cave and they've gone missing. And so there's this guild who has engaged you to go find out what happened. So you're not really adventuring. So I also have kind of like as opposed to meddlers, you know. So this is now you're like an adventure journalist. You're an adventure reporter. So your job is to find out all the details and piece things together.
That's awesome.
And it's kind of like the recap of a session, but like part of the game. And for that, because it's kind of like it has to do with details and all, that's so much shit. I wrote so much shit. It's so horrible. So it was such a pain and gone through so many drafts of chopping stuff up. And Ellie had to chop a lot of stuff up for me as well, and it's difficult. It's difficult.
Yeah. It's also
mystery writing is hard.
Well, and the brevity thing, the compression thing, which we talked a little bit back with Luke Gearing, who's obviously also good at that as well. Josh Demansky recently, we talked a little about kind of point crawls as webs of information and what information you need versus what is red herring versus what is potentially useful, but not. Kind of like how do you think through that as a writer versus as the GM? It just seems so easy with some of these books. You pick them up and you can run through them, and they don't require prep. Or nowadays, I think as an industry, I think that a lot of writers have gotten a lot better than I think some of those old torturous, I would say largely nonsensical, hallowed OD&D modules where like none of there's no reasoning behind any of it. Here, I think everything kind of
hey.
Like one of the little things you do is you have little maps throughout where you can see like every time you're on a spread with information about a room, you have a little map recap. So you kind of visually, it's like reinforcing where we are. Right. And everything relates. There's always some reason why a thing is in a room. Like I assume there's other stuff you haven't mentioned. That's just the boring shit that got deleted in one of the drafts, draft 19, whatever, it got deleted. But by draft 73, however many drafts you go through, it's all useful and it's all interesting and it all makes sense and feels like it belongs. And I think that is, again, a hard challenge as a writer, regardless of how long you're writing, regardless of your setting, is to produce lived-in feeling environments where there isn't this linear, you have to go ABC. You can still do different stuff, but everything kind of has a utility to a GM. The GM knows why they're reading it. Yeah. And so, I do think it's a real skill for me, I guess your editorial team as well as yourself to be able to kind of, agree on this bullet makes sense. We're going to keep the little sad automaton who just wants to read, but is useful, right? Players could use it versus, maybe we cut some other whatever factoid that just doesn't matter. So I do think that's hard. And Chris, I agree. It's like, man, I aspire to that. And I always think of David Lynch talking about trying to make movies like Steven Spielberg. And every when around the time Lost Highway came out, he's like, I keep trying to make, E.T. or Goonies. And somehow I make these impenetrable 3-hour surrealist movies about the devil. I feel the same way. Like I sit down to write an OSR adventure and it's like 300 pages later. But so yeah, I mean, Munkao, these are master classes anyway. The final result, whoever did one, they are master classes in
that's funny.
Brief writing, of adventures. Utility, GM utility.
GM utility, yes, yeah. That's the word I'm going to use when writing up the description for this episode.
Yeah, there utility. You go. Well, with that, so I mean, I think there's so much we could talk about. Again, I don't want to spoil all these books. But obviously, Munkao will give you the last word, and we'll ask about how people can support you and reach out. I mean, Chris, do you have other thoughts? Do you have other questions that we have not covered?
The one burning question that I have remaining, it's not even a burning question. I was just going to ask Munkao what is it about Into the Odd as a system that specifically drew you to it, and specifically for this setting as well. We've got our various Bastion lands, we have our other attacks always hit games, things like that. But I'm just curious, for Call of Mandala, what was it about Into the Odd?
It was because I ran Mouse Return for my partner during the pandemic.
And you're like, this is good, I like it.
Yeah, that is
fair enough.
That is one of it. And then I read Liminal Horror, and I was like, oh yeah. So how it builds stuff, and just how it plays with the mechanics to build the world. I love that. So I was very inspired by those two. And then of course Karen is like the resources, and it makes everything just so easy to go through, and that is a large part of the reason when I started making Southeast Asian fantasy, I couldn't think in terms of TTRPGs because D&D still lived big in my head, and I just couldn't deal with those with that. It's insane. I can't do that. Yeah. So I think it was during the pandemic when I played Mouse Return and like read Liminal Horror and Karen, of course, and that it kind of like a lot of stuff kind of click, and that, hey, shit, this is like some of the stuff that the nice things that you mentioned about Color Mandala are not a lot of stuff are not from me. It's from those systems. Those systems already done that before. So I'm just really inspired and taking from that and just doing it in my own setting, you know. So that is that's it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, I would say, not to end on a spicy note, but I think it is coming more from you, because I've read a lot of those things. I think personally are they're under mechanicalized for my taste in adventure games. You know, like a lot of those systems. And I think when I fully plan to run these, but just using the grid system with, you know, so we can, you know, people can boost rolls or whatever, and, you know, have narrative powers. More of a PBTA style thing is our bag. But I think the adventures themselves would require basically zero change. I mean, the only thing you're changing is numbers, right? All of the beats, all of the NPCs, the clues, the mini games, the consequences at the end. Which
a lot of it is problem solving, right?
Yeah.
And decision making, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Those are the games I enjoy. So I veer towards writing those.
Yeah, same exactly. And I think structurally, I really appreciate you have a setup, a bunch of places to go in any order, and then possible endings which vary depending on what you did. And I'm like, that's good design. So again, whether that's, I mean, if you're crediting, you know, more Into the Odd with that structure, that's fine. But I do think you've brought that into the setting, the Kala Mandala setting, kind of natively in a strong way. On that note, was there anything else, Munkao, you wanted to talk about? Anything you wanted to tell us or announce to the world, or?
Where is this coming out?
Oh, great
next
question.
month.
When is it coming out? I can tell you in a moment.
We can decide live.
So I'm hoping to release a new adventure as well as a new art zine in maybe next month. So confirm dates.
Why don't you tell us about it? It'll either, you know, we can time it however you want, but that sounds like it'll be relevant, right?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, it's gonna be the new adventure is called What Happened to the Silver Spoon Boys. It is an adventure where you go find out what happened to the Silver Spoon Boys, and the twist is that instead of the normal dungeon delving, you are to submit a report based on what you find out in the dungeon, and piece together a narrative. Yeah, so that is kind of like the twist to it. Yeah. There will also be an art book and art zines. This time around, you'll collect a lot more of my colored art. Yeah, so my art zines are often really just like a collection of the process, like what I mentioned, is just really kind of like helps people get used to this space and familiarize themselves with it. It's going to be called Otherly Lives. What else? I think that's it. You can get my zines on each on DriveThruRPG. That's one of the art zines. And then DriveThruRPG, and also my own website, my own web shop, heycentaur.com. You can find me on Instagram, Blue Sky, the Munkao, Munkao. That's it, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And for those listening or watching tonight who want to catch the podcast episode, be released June 18th is literally what we have scheduled in the schedule. So
there you go. You can re-listen to it, but it'll have some fun music at the beginning and end that kind of goes and I honestly do re-listen to it because I enjoy hearing our guests, and I think it's easier. We were talking before taping about the difference between talking and doing and reflecting, and it is almost like an interesting thing to hear someone in the moment and you're trying to process and respond versus you sort of already know, you know, it's just like this object. So, you know, I do appreciate, Munkao, you coming on, and I definitely will think more about this and kind of come back to some of these points about, you know, how do we design adventures? How do we tell stories? Do I need to have even numbered rollable lists of things just because I like rolling on lists? But maybe it's better just see what happens rhizomatically. Thank you so much for coming on, really. And everyone can support Kala Mandala as a project specifically by going to heycentaur.com or any of the Hey Centaur publishing pages on itch or TTRPG, which will obviously link. I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that our friends at Plus One Experience are publishing this or distributing it in the U.S. Is that right, Munkao?
Yes.
Or they just want to, okay.
Plus One EXP is my fulfillment partner. They are distributing it in the US. I have just you can get them in the UK in Igloo Tree. And yeah, I am gonna work with Mud Knights Media for Europe.
Very cool.
Distribution. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, so people can support basically also indie like booksellers as well as supporting Munkao. And yeah, thanks again for coming on. If you're listening to this either now or in June, just as some housekeeping, we're still running the Grit System Game Jam, so we're hopeful that people will check out the system we've been using to design games, and we have third-party licenses, everything, do stuff for free, commercial, whatever. And we have some prizes, some guest judges, some friends to read stuff. So that's a fun thing. Yeah,
we're not judging it.
We're not judging
we got no skin in this game.
No. We're just having fun reading things and making games about chairs and cats. Munkao, is there?
Jesus.
Do you know? Are you going to do like a Kickstarter for Mandala at any point? Is that something we should plug or not?
No, probably even if I do it, probably in like next year or the year after. So it's going to be a long.
We'll have you back on if and when.
Yeah.
If and when the cycle of samsara brings us back to that point.
Great.
Thematic ending.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, we didn't even talk about samsara. Well, there's so much left.
Wow.
So we'll get back to. Maybe we can next time ask about some of your influences, other art you want to shout out. Talk about samsara. Talk about different aspects of culture. And yeah, just look at more of your great art. Thank you so much, Munkao.
Thank you.
And
so much.
any other last words before we call it a day?
I'm good. Thank you so much. Thank you guys.
Right.
It's not as scary as I thought.
Yeah.
You're right. You guys are right.
Yeah, man.
Good.
I'm glad.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.